If you are into sales, then today's video is for you. When I say sales, you could be running your own business, you could be a sales professional, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be even having a job. Even there, regardless of what kind of a job you have, we all have to sell. Now, this specific question which I'm answering on this video is somebody asking me, how can I sell myself without feeling fake? And this is coming from somebody who is an entrepreneur. And without going deep into the source of the question, let's agree that this question is a legitimate question. And if you are in the profession of selling, you know this, like you don't believe in the product, you don't believe in the offer, you somehow still have to sell. You are thinking about what the prospect is thinking about you, and what if they are reading into you, and what if you are put in a position to sell something that you don't believe in. There is a lot of psychology that goes into this. So what I want to do is I want to answer. There are so many different ways I can approach the answer, but I have chosen to kind of share with you maybe 2 or 3 principles. And if you are in the profession of selling for a long time, you can connect to this. If you're totally new to this, then also you will connect to this. That's my goal. That's my idea. So on this channel, I have recorded many videos talking about the product, the features, the benefits, the offer, the psychology of selling, the concept behind building value, delivering value, tangible value, intangible, intrinsic. I mean, I've gone through multiple different videos on this, and from time to time, as we progress on this video, I'm going to drop some links here that I believe are going to be helpful to you. So that said, some of my thoughts on this. The first and the foremost is you got to differentiate between identity and offer. What is an offer, how to create an offer, and all that for a different video. But at a very high level, you got to differentiate between your identity and the offer. Okay, you are not selling yourself. You are not selling yourself. You are selling a slice of you, and the slice could be your skills, could be your track record, could be the results. A slice. When you try to sell your whole self to everyone, that's the point where you open up the door for others to think that you are fake. So, and I've gone on to say this multiple times on this channel, if you sell everything to everyone, then you will end up selling nothing to anyone. So you're not selling to your complete self, you're only selling a slice. So how do you do this? Well, the true sales confidence comes when you curate a relevant self of you to a client. So the curation is where the crux is. That's where the learning part is. That's when years and years and years of you trying to sell, trying to create offers, products, whatever. So that's the journey. You arrive at a point where you are able to curate. And when you start curating a relevant self of you to the prospects, that's when you are authentic. That's when you are relevant. That's when you are, impactful. There's a lot to this, but you get the idea. For the sake of this video, I'm just giving you just some pointers here. I've seen people who make this mistake of impressing. So when you're trying to impress, you'll sound fake. But when you express, that's when the sale happens. That's when you are being considered authentic. You are trustworthy. So how do you bring your expression? Well, expression happens in 3 different ways. First and the foremost is obviously you have to explain the process. But the process becomes more valid when you start talking about the failures you had applying that process. And that even becomes more authentic when you explain the lessons you learned as a as so your process, failures, and lessons, consider that as a triad. And when you are constantly navigating these three sides of this triangle, that's when you are expressing. See, in order to explain, when you express your failures, you are authentic. When you are explaining the lessons you learned, you're authentic. When you are sharing the process, you're authentic. And all these three things leads to trust. And trust eventually will lead to sale. Then people ask, whenever I say this, people say, by doing this, aren't you not compromising your authority? There is a difference between authority and vulnerability. True sales confidence is when you are not hiding your weakness. And the way to hide, the only way you can be transparent about your weakness is by expressing your vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities do not take away the authority. In fact, people who are extremely, who are on the top of their game, who are, if you listen to them, they're always sharing things that went wrong with them, where they broke apart, where they fell apart, how they gathered themselves, how they built it up. So vulnerabilities are, it's amazing. And I've been questioned multiple times of being on radio and talking about some of the challenges I was going through in my life when it came to my mother's cancer, my father's stroke, and all. People like, okay, if you say all these things, then they will, it's unnecessary. You're there talking about them. Why are you talking about you? No, you can talk about yourself as long as you rewire the entire conversation back to something that is even more positive for them. So you talk about yourself as long as it's relevant for them. Okay. Contribution is always greater than validation. So fakeness in sales happen, or you're considered fake, or you're not considered authentic when you are trying to seek approval, and when you are chasing the sale, right? If you're contributing and you are not dancing to be picked, right? So there are other people trying to sell the same thing, and you're not participating in the dance, and you are not trying to do something so that your prospect chooses you. And as long as you're contributing, you're good. In sales, if I have to sum up some of this whole video and kind of give one closing comment on this, then as you are in the conversation, you ask yourself, what about me is useful here? Okay. What about me is useful here? You ask that question silently to yourself, and then you start speaking from there. So every time you speak, every time you say something is of value, has depth, it's a pot of gold, practically speaking. When that happens, I don't think your prospect will say no to you. Try this. You're a coach, you are in sales. If nothing else on this video, then at least ask that question. Okay, what about me is useful here? And then start speaking from there. See, magic happens in your sales process. You don't need to learn the best closing technique. You don't need to learn, like in sales, they teach you all these techniques. Yeah, they're all relevant. But the point is, when would you use them? How do you use them? How do you time them? Most people don't get it right anyway. But then when you lead the conversation in your mind this way, where you are contributing, you are vulnerable, you are expressing, you are cutting a slice of you and giving it away as a part of the sales process. And then you're asking yourself this question, what about me is useful here? And then you start answering. Then you start speaking. Magic happens. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Hopefully this is helpful. If it is, do me a favor. click the like button somewhere to my left and to your right, somewhere there. If this was of value to you and you want to subscribe to this channel, then I show up here every day. I take your questions. I take the questions from my email subscribers. Sometimes people email me and I answer them here on this channel. So if you comment on this video, then that way I know that you watched this video and I can respond to you. That's all for now. Wherever you are, you be safe, and I'll be with you as early as tomorrow. That's all. Bye now.